Trent, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Welcome to the Bodies Built Better podcast.
Thank you, Jackie. Awesome to be here. I'm a massive fan of the show. And so, very nice to be here.
Glad to hear it. Great to have you on. You are a professional lifeguard. You've been on the hit show Bondi Rescue. And recently you've had major surgery and it's taken you out of the thing that you love to do most. We're going to talk about what that means physically and mentally. But before we do, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about you growing up by the beach and how that played a part in you becoming a lifeguard.
Yeah, so that was very much meant to be almost. When I was born, we lived pretty much like 50 meters from the surf. When where we were living when I was a young toddler and baby, and I think I spent all of my time when I was young at the beach, obviously, and that went right through till when I was a young kid. I went through, like, we call it nippers, which is like the volunteer surf lifesavers. When you're a young kid, you get put through that on Sunday mornings, which is amazing. I surfed pretty much with all my mates when we were young every day, and then went through into like the volunteer surf life saving club, which is like the red and yellow caps, and you go and do your volunteer surf patrols every weekend. And there's also a competition element where we train and race each other, and the sport of Ironman. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but yes. I was involved in all of that at a sort of high level throughout my sort of younger days. And then a natural progression from that was to join the lifeguard service, which was held in high esteem in the area for many, many years, and it's got a really good lineage and very respectable service. So natural progression there was for me to try out for lifeguards and join when I was not even 18.
Yeah. It sounds like you were a fish in a past life.
That's right. I'm very much a water creature. If you've ever seen me on land, I'm not a land creature at all. I trip over my own feet, and yes.
I think they say that about swimmers, actually. They're amazing in the water, but on land.
Yeah, you do not want to see me on land. Yeah, it's always best off that I'm close to or in the water. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit firstly about lifeguarding professionally and what that actually means to be a professional lifeguard in terms of, I guess, the fitness requirements to be a lifeguard.
Yeah, so it's the large portion of the guys that I work with in the service, we all grew up together, surfing together on the local beaches. And I think that's part of what gives us the ability to do our job very well, is that we know the beaches like the back of our hand. We've surfed them since we were young. We've seen a lot of things in the surf that form your expertise. And so those guys that I grew up surfing with, that we're all working together now, it was a natural sort of progression into going into the lifeguard service. And it is a very highly held position in the community. We're lucky to have a great sort of reputation in our own community in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, Bondi. And it's something that means a lot to all of us. We take our job very seriously, and all of the trimmings that go with it. It's helping the community, putting back into the community. It's saving lives, the big things. Those are really important to all of us, and we don't take that lightly at all.
And what about in terms of fitness requirements? Do they look at you and go, oh, you've been surfing all your life in the area, that's all it takes? Or do they go, well, you need to be able to, I don't know, swim this far or whatever?
It's a pretty it's a pretty rigorous selection criteria. So surf knowledge is very important. That's seen as the bread and butter of our work, if you like. Being able to pick the conditions, being able to pick the surf, being able to pick the fastest possible way out to a patient in the water, which means using the ocean to your advantage. But also off the back of that, we have a fitness requirement. So on a day where new recruits are invited to try out as well, we do an 800-metre pool swim in under 13 minutes, which is 32 laps. of a 25-meter pool, if you like. So that's in the morning, and then straight after that, we'll go down to the beach and do an Ironman course, which consists of a surf swim. I think it's out 600 meters, and then a board paddle with our rescue boards, and then a run. And then we do that twice through, which is about 25 minutes. So it's demanding and it's grueling. And if you haven't had a background in surf lifesaving or surfing, it can be quite sort of, yeah, like I said, grueling. So we find that we have a mix of people coming through and joining our service, but predominantly the key qualities seem to be people that have come from the surf and or at least some pool swimmers have come through, surf swimmers, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's the fitness.
So the 800 meters is in a pool?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So we do the 800 meter swim in a pool, and it's something that the boys and girls still get nervous about. You can do it, but you don't want to have a shocker on the morning and not pass or do a bad time. And everyone's pretty competitive on the service. So we're all looking at each other's times and who did what for, the 800. So that's like held in pretty high esteem on the service. So yeah.
Well, I have to ask now, what's the best time for an 800 meter swim? Do you know?
I do. One of the guys did, the average time for most of us lifeguards is probably between 10, 11 minutes, I want to say, around that sort of mark, from 10:30. I think 11 minutes is pretty much an average time if you brought it down. There's been a couple of the guys that have done 9 minutes.
Whoa.
9 minutes 30 or something like that. And these are ex-pool swimmers that have just absolutely, mowed it down. Like it's so good to watch people swim like that in the pool.
And then does that translate really well to the ocean though? It
can, and it also can't. So good question, because it doesn't always necessarily. You can be a absolute gun pool swimmer and then go down to the surf, and it's a totally different environment. So the traits of good pool swimmers, obviously fitness, technique, knowing the pool and having that background. The traits of good surf swimmers are being able to read the conditions, find, again, the fastest possible way out to sea, using the ocean to your advantage, and that kind of thing. So they're quite different sort of qualities, although there is a good crossover there. If, there are a lot of good pool swimmers that do surf swim as well. So but a very good question. Not always one leads to the other.
Yeah. You mentioned before, obviously, having surfed pretty much all your life, that, you know the ocean.
Yeah.
So you must have this really good instinct, I guess, for danger. When have you used that when, you've been out on duty?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think a common trait of a lot of us lifeguards is this inherent ability to be able to see something before it happens, or this sense of something's not right. And we talk about this all the time. And, we'll be down at the beach scanning 30, 40, 50,000 people in the water some days at Bondi over the Christmas breaks. And people always ask us, how do you know where to look? Like, there's just heads everywhere and they look like ants out there. And you just know it's this kind of, it's a skill that you build up. And like I said, it's very, it's inherent. You feel like, I've been at work and I've looked a certain way down the beach and don't know why I was looking down that end of the beach, but someone was starting to get into trouble, and it's like, you just know. So there's a really kind of natural feel for what's going on. And it gets to the point where some days you're on your day off and you're just at the beach walking along, getting a coffee with a friend or something, and you see something like someone getting in the early stages of getting into trouble. They don't know they're in trouble yet, but you can see what's about to happen next and predict it. And, lo and behold, next thing they get caught in a rip and, they're calling out for help. And then you make sure that someone's nearby, which there's normally a lifeguard close, but you've seen that even before it happens.
How many times have you been at the beach off duty and then worked?
Yeah, many, many times. I mean, I've even been at, one of the bars across the road from North Bondi having a drink with friends, and it was sunset after the lifeguards had gone home, and a small child got into trouble in a rip like that's next to the rocks at North Bondi, and I had to run out of the pub and start stripping my shirt off, shoes off, jeans off, and run into the water and help out. It's the kind of thing that you never ever get to switch off. As much as you try, you're always looking. And so the other thing is, when we're surfing on our days off and things like that, you will nearly always do what we call an assist, which is a swimmer will start to get into trouble out there. You'll see it before it happens and paddle over to help them, give them some direction and guidance, and that way they find their way back onto the sandbank. So a lot of the times you're doing that kind of thing as well on your days off. So there's a lot of people call them unofficial rescues.
Yeah. What do you actually do when you want to have a holiday or a break? Do you go to the beach, or you're like, no, I'm not going there because that's work?
Yeah, we don't go to the beach if you want to have a day off or a holiday. You go to the snow, or you go to I mean, the cities or something like that, or the parks. You just don't go to the beach because you're going to end up doing some form of work. Yeah, exactly right. Golf course is a great one.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, let's talk about your surgery, spinal surgery. Tell us about it.
So I want to say last year was one of the worst years of my life. It had been detected that I was having neck pain, and off the back of that, I was having radial nerve pain down my arm. And I kept working with it and thinking that it's going to be okay. And you take the painkillers and whatnot. And I got an MRI and got my MRI results back, and hadn't gone and seen a surgeon yet, but we've always put things off, don't we? We're busy. This will go away, this nagging ache. And inevitably at work, it got to the point where it was hard to manage the job as well as, the injury. And I was in a situation where I'd sort of taken some time, downtime from work, stood myself down, and went and saw spinal surgeon, neurosurgeon in Sydney, and I was told that I needed the damage in my neck was quite severe, and I needed my neck fused 2 levels and a cage put in, which was just huge. I mean, I was expecting him to say, "Oh, we might put some cortisone in this, or I'll give you some exercises to fix this," and so that just floored me. I remember walking out of there and thinking, I can't fuse my neck. What does this even mean? What's the rest of my... So got a quick second and third opinion. Second opinion was to fuse. Again, a very reputable spinal surgeon. Third opinion, who was my surgeon now, Dr. Miles, said to me, "Look, I think we can put an artificial disc in the C5, C6, and that'll do the job." And so I said to him, "That sounds good to me. That's the least invasive procedure that we can do, so let's start with that." And booked myself in November last year and got it done. But I just was there was a wave of sort of emotions going on and a lot going on. So
absolutely
booked in and got the surgery in November last year.
Leading up to that, I mean, how long did you have the pain for, and do you remember anything that set it off?
No, and I get asked this a lot, how did you do it?
Yeah.
And it's it's not a how did you do it injury. It's it's a what we call a wear and tear injury, degeneration, and I just worn the discs down and the facet joints down through surfing, paddling in the surf, lifeguarding, and just swimming in the surf, and all of that neck being into sort of those positions that necks don't always like.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, is it that extension?
Extension, it's almost hyperextension. Yeah, like when we paddle our rescue boards, a lot of the time we're on our knees, and our neck is kinked up into hyperextension. We're looking at out to sea, where and even lying down surfing, your neck's up in that extension, sort of hyperextension almost. And there's a very famous term, surfer's neck. Which is an extension injury to the neck. Wear and tear, and it just got worse and worse, and it got to the point where even doing rescues was pretty painful, and I was icing it after and whatnot, and I was like, it's time to do something about this.
How long did the surgery take?
So the surgery was amazing. I was in hospital for 2 days, which is a lot quicker than I thought it would be. I was up on my feet the next day, and had to wear a neck brace for 2 weeks after, and I was obviously let go home. And then the process from there was quite lengthy. I think I want to say 2 months to getting like the neck brace off, getting a little bit of mobility back and whatnot. But for the most part, the hospital component of it, the surgery itself, I think he gets them done. These surgeons are amazing. I think he gets them done in a few hours. Like literally, I got cut a sort of a opening in the front of my neck. So they go in through the front of your neck. It's incredible. They move your windpipe and all of your big arteries aside, and then they go in through the front, take out the old disc. I've seen there's a bit of a mallet involved, and there's some if you haven't seen one, probably don't watch. Yeah, it's on YouTube. Don't YouTube anything.
Exactly. Yeah, not before anyway.
Yeah, luckily I YouTubed it after, but and so then they take out the old disc and then they put in the prosthesis, which goes in again through the front. They fix it to the back of your spine next to the facet joints, and clamp it, unclamp it, and close you up, and then you're out of there. So it's a very it's a vast procedure for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, it's amazing. So and the recovery's quick because they take a small scar in the front of your neck, and once that scar heals up, I think mine was glued. They didn't even stitch it. So I've got a very small scar there now.
Wow. So you were in a neck brace for 2 months?
Correct. Sorry, no, it was 2 to 3 weeks in the neck brace, and then just getting your mobility back after having the neck brace on is weird. You get this hypervigilance to bumping your neck, moving your neck too quickly, all of that. Getting in and out of the car was difficult because I was like, if I bump this the wrong way, or if so there's a lot of all of that going on for, I want to say, 2 months, getting a little bit of movement back in and the like. Yeah.
What was the rehab like? Like, do you leave the hospital and they go, this is what you should be doing for the next 2, 3, 6 months? Or is it like, go see someone and on your way?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I was fortunate that I had like an integrative healthcare sort of plan so my surgeon, Dr. Mobbs, works really well with a place called Elite Spinal Physio Pilates. So, and they did, specialists in spines and physio. And so moving on from Dr. Mobbs, who's the surgeon, you go to Elite Spinal, and then they look after your rehab, like going forward. So it's integrated, which is really great because the surgeon talks to the physio talks to the surgeon, they check in with each other and review your progress at 3 months. And so I felt like I was in very good hands being part of a team. And I didn't have to worry about the rehab because it was all planned and taken care of for me, which is great. And the big component of that has been Pilates, reformer Pilates. Neck is in a sort of a safe position, and the reform is great. You don't move your neck a lot. You build up strength in your core and all of that.
Yeah.
That was all part of the rehab process. Yeah.
Tell us more about that, because it's not like a shoulder where you're building the muscles around it. Like the neck is supposed to be really stable. Obviously, we still need movement. Yeah. But what is going through your mind when you're doing, whether it is Pilates, are you keeping everything really still and rigid, or are you allowing yourself to have a little bit of movement so you don't stiffen up? Like
that's a good question. Also, it's so when you're doing the exercises in that environment, there's always a towel placed behind your head, under your neck, just so that supporting your neck is always paramount and key, obviously. So when you're doing some of the reformer exercises and some of the floor exercises, even for your core and the like, that we've maintained a towel placed, in this, that sort of small part of your neck there, behind your head. So that's being able to, isolate too much neck movement while you're doing that type of work. On the other side, when you're doing sort of more, I guess, like you're walking and you know, just doing your general movement exercises, they encourage you to move your neck as quick as possible, because you don't want to get like stiff in the neck, and then all of the muscles, you know, sort of, I guess, erode around the neck, and so you need to keep all of that strong, but you also need to keep movement. So, but controlled movement.
Absolutely.
You know, I remember doing a lot of chin tucks is a big one for cervical surgery. Like you do the chin tucks where you give yourself a double chin, and you know, those ones and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, they give you this little book of exercises to do. But yeah, so there's a mix of you know, controlled neck position plus movement.
How has it all been going? Have you had any setbacks? How are you feeling?
Oh, setbacks! Wow. Yeah, there's a lot. There's been a lot of setbacks. Yeah, I've learned that a lot of this spinal surgery and chronic injury is about managing your expectations. I went into surgery last year thinking that after 3 months I was going to be back to my absolute best, lifeguarding again within 6 months. You know, all of the things just brand new. However, it hasn't gone like that at all. We're still having some problems with it, in that we don't know why it's not really coming along like it should. It's largely better. I have much better movement in it, but I'm still getting pain in the neck, sort of localized. And if I do things like swimming, it can flare it up a little bit. So we're still in the that sort of, I guess, the trenches with it, where we haven't sorted it out yet. And I'm coming up to a year next month. So what I'm learning about spinal surgery is that it can take a long time, and there are many, many setbacks. And, you know, even the surgeon at one stage is like, you know, process of elimination. Is it not muscular that's causing the pain? Is it the facet joints? You know, we're now looking at maybe the facet joints are a little bit sort of like out of shape. Do we need to sort of fix the facet joints? I just had 2 cortisone injections put in it a month ago. So yeah, when you talk about setbacks, I'm still riding one out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The focus, I guess, is always on kind of that physical side of recovery, no matter what sort of injury that you go through. How exactly have you managed the mindset and, you know, that mental battle?
Yeah, that's been huge for me. I can easily say that it's been the toughest thing I've been through in my life. You know, there's layers of losing, you know, your job, not per se, but lifeguarding as in out in the surf, and you know, your identity, but also like one of those people that loves to keep fit. I've always been an athlete, not being able to do any training and being sedentary, and also just, I guess, the pain side of things and managing your expectations of where you're at, whereas you thought you would be like down the track by now. So the way I've, you know, sort of had to learn to manage all of that is I've taken on meditation as part of my, you know, sort of, I guess, toolbox for working through the mind sort of stuff. I had to enlist a psychologist to help me, I guess, work through a lot of the difficult stuff like work and you know, moving away from a job that you love and being out in the surf, and then disconnect from your teammates and a lot of that sort of thing, and just managing the pain side of things as well. And also just like, you know, I've done a lot of reading about, like, I guess, leaning into things that are uncomfortable, and you know, times that really test you often show really big growth. And so it's been really difficult, but I think I've grown so much as a person and learned so much about myself throughout this period of time. It's been valuable in one sense as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, like you said, lifeguarding and even surfing, just being out on the beach, it's your life. I mean, how much is being a lifeguard part of your identity?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, you know, I've always been out in the surf since I can remember. I've been lifeguarding for, you know, so many years now, coming up to sort of all up, sort of almost 19 years or something like that. You know, it's what I remember doing as my first job. And, you know, I think it's part of my identity. And that's really hard to shift away from that. I go to the beach now sometimes, and you see people surfing, and you see the guys at work going out, you know, on a busy day and doing their rescues and all of those things. And you can't help but feel deflated and, you know, almost despondent about the fact that how did you end up here? And how do I get back from here to there? So there's this huge, big gap in the middle of like, well, how did I sort of position myself here, and what's the way forward? So I think that's really hard to manage, that losing that sort of part of your life where you surf. Surf is like, we call it Dr. Ocean, right? Because it's like, it's so good for you, and it's, you know, mental health, it's physical health, it's all of that. And as lifeguards, that's our jam. So to be sort of moved out of that has been really hard. So I've had to really sort of adjust my focus and work around, like, again, managing my expectations and just leaning into things that are really uncomfortable and difficult.
You said you've learned a lot about yourself. What have you learned during this period?
Yeah, I've learned that I'm much more resilient than I thought I was. I used to think that, you know, little bumps in the road can derail me pretty easily and things like that. But throughout this period of time, I've learned that I'm much more resilient than I thought I was, but also quite resourceful. So finding what you need when you need to find it has been a really good skill for me to learning how to manage the disappointments and learning how to, you know, work out solutions for your body when there's pain, or working how to strengthen this part of your body, and you know, all of those things. Being resourceful, reading books on like recovery and the mental side of coming back from sports injuries and those sorts of things. And I think that's one of the things that I really have taken away from this.
On the flip side, what have you learnt about others during this process?
So I've learned that others throughout this process are very supportive, and people want to help. And you know, I've had so many well-wish messages and phone calls, and you know, people genuinely care. You know, and the, you know, resounding sort of theme is that like people are interested in you getting back to your best, and will help you in any way they can. And I've had so much support from so many different areas of the community, friends, the lifeguard team, sports professionals, you know, strangers that come up in the street and they're like, oh, I heard you've got a back, like, how are you going? When are you going to be back to lifeguarding? And is there anything I can do to help? You know, so awesome. Yeah, that's what I've learned about others. I've learned that people care, and if you're going through a tough time in life, hopefully, and you know, most often than not, people will try and help however they can.
Yeah. And are you back to the beach, or are you hanging around?
I'm hanging around, but I'm not back. Yeah, I mean, I'm not back lifeguarding yet. I'm working in the admin side of things for the lifeguard service at the moment, so I'm transitioned to a bit of an office job at the moment. But yeah, I'm just in this holding pattern, if you like, where we're still trying to work out where the injury's going and what our next course of action is. So that can be frustrating, because it's like there is not a very definite plan at the moment. I see the surgeon again in another month, and we're going to sort of work out where we go from there. There may be a fusion on the table. That may be the next option. We may need to go back into surgery and have a fusion. However, that's his call, and I'm hoping not, but if it has to be that way, it has to be that way. So yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to sort of you know, do my Pilates, and I'm walking a lot. Like, I feel like everyone's walked a lot in COVID, but like, you know, walking a lot. Yeah, right. And yeah, just trying to stay away from the surf at the moment.
Yeah. Lifeguarding, I mean, it's such a huge job though, and I mean, stressful physically, mentally. Is there anything that you take away from that job, I guess, in those stressful moments, or the tough moments, that you
you've sort of been able to draw from throughout this process?
Yeah, for sure. So I think we work under some pretty stressful and intense working conditions sometimes at Bondi, with all of the things that are going on. And at any one time, you can have multiple emergencies going on, or multiple victims in the water, and not enough lifeguards and that kind of thing. So I think what I've been able to transfer across from lifeguarding into my own life is that you need to, like, we always said this thing was like, stop, take a breath, look at what's going on, and then act, sort of work backwards from there. And so for me, that's really important in life. I'm like, okay, don't get wound up in the whole emotion of what's going on. Stop, pause, take a breath, and then let's unpack it from there. So, and, I've got this control the controllables. A lot of the time we try and control things that we can't control. And if you can sort of break things down into chunks, and then, it's the same as our work tasks, break it down into chunks, and then, do what you can with what you've got. So I think they're the sorts of things. Probably stress management, in the job that we do is probably a transferable skill across to our private lives.
Absolutely. I can get a bit woo-woo sometimes, and I feel like the universe has our back and whatnot, and things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
Do you think that this has happened for a reason, or do you think there's something in particular that you need to be learning throughout this that you may not have learnt had it not happened?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I get a little bit woo-woo as well. So, I think that that's brilliant, because it's like, there's always there's that whole saying, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you.
Yeah.
So, you can be in your most difficult days and things can seem really bleak, and, I've done it myself. I do that. Why is this happening to me? The guys are still working. I should be lifeguarding. That's my livelihood. Why aren't I surfing? Why is this happening to me? I did it a lot, over the last sort of year, and that whole questioning things, and, this is unfair. That whole statement, this is unfair. We all do it, and we know we shouldn't.
Really?
But I think, what I've learned throughout this time is that there are blessings in adversity. And so, each adversity holds its little blessing if you can find it and you look for it. So for me, I've learned some really big personal growth throughout this period of time, and just dealing with things make you uncomfortable, and patience. Patience has been a really big one for me throughout this. I've had to sit with things that I can't control, and outcomes that I don't like, but be patient and sort of sit with it, and just be patient and do your best. So I've been an impatient person a lot of my life, and maybe I needed to be taught patience, by the universe. I'm a bit of a universe person, so I believe that everything happens for a reason, and the like. So I think that patience for me is a big one that I needed to learn. And the other thing is personal growth. So I think that every time we go through adversity, we grow. And so if you just by immersing yourself in the adversity and working through it, you generally find that when you come out the other side, you can you've got gratitude for going through that, because you've popped out the other side, and but the coping mechanisms and skills that you have as a human, you grow as well. So I think they're the types of things that going through things like these can really teach you, and you get confidence from going through things. You're like, well, if I can handle that, I can handle this, so, and it flows on from there. So I think that's big.
You mentioned gratitude. What are you grateful for during this period?
Grateful for so much. I have the most amazing group of friends. I have, beautiful family. I'm fortunate enough to live in a part of the world that is, absolutely stunning on any given day. And I feel sort of grateful for all of those things, even though, there's been days where I've just, really just fallen in a hole, but I still managed to be able to find some kind of gratitude for those things. And I'm big on practicing it. So like I will remind myself every day I've got a gratitude journal. Brilliant. So I actually, I jot things down like each day of like what made me smile or happy today and what I'm grateful for. And I think that's a really powerful tool in it gives you a really good sense of what's good in your life. And so I think that's a really good thing for people to do. It's very popular now, but I think it's a great tool. Yeah.
Popular for good reason.
Yeah, that's right. It's popular because it works.
Yeah. I know you said, you've learnt that people are really supportive and, throughout this process, but is there something about being injured that you'd want your family and friends to know in terms of, I guess, support for you?
Yeah, I think injury, there's levels and layers to it, depending on your background. I mean, I know for sports people, there's the layer and similar to us with lifeguarding. It's, we're used to putting our bodies through training, and we the endorphin dump and all of that sort of thing, so we're used to kind of like going through the physical rigors every day, and our bodies and our minds enjoy being in that place. So you take that away from an athlete, you take that away from someone like that uses their body for work and that sort of thing. There's this huge big gap in their life and this empty void, and often you hear it about pool swimmers and things like, what do I do now when they finish swimming, or that kind of thing. And so with an injured athlete, it's really hard to fill that void of what do I put in that space to make me happy where my training used to be, or my work used to be, and that sort of thing. So I think there's this unanimously there's this big gap of like chasm of emptiness. It's like, well, how do I fill that, and what do I do with this, and what do I do with myself each day? I can't train, I can't, and I think it's pretty common that athletes that are injured get depression and anxiety because they just can't manage the whole being away from their sport and using their body. So I think that's big, but I also think there's obviously the mental side, but then there's the pain management side as well. So if an athlete or whoever it is in pain with an injury, that just kind of grinds on your, in your background of your psyche as well. So I think, being able to manage pain, pain can be really draining and wear you down when it's with you a lot of the time. So I think to go back to your question, what would you want your family or a friend to know about, an injured athlete, to help them be there more supportive for that person? It's just knowing that this person's way out of their sort of, comfort zone. They're like a fish out of water is a good example, and then they're dealing with pain on top of that. So maybe it's just being there for them and trying to understand their process and their journey and where they're at. I think it's just, it doesn't always need to be advice. Sometimes it's just listening and checking in.
Yeah, patience all round.
Yeah, patience is the word for the day.
Well, when you think about getting back to the job, well, firstly, that's on the list for you. It's figuring out
it's
how to
on my goal list.
It's
definitely on my goal list. It's about figuring it out and whether or not it's achievable in the big scheme of things. So it's definitely something that I'm working towards at the moment. But I also have to open my mind to the possibility that may not happen, and I have to keep an open mind. I'm in the process right now. My mindset is like, be open to whatever comes along, and be okay with whatever that looks like. So it's a big shift, but I think if you can try and sort of look at all possibilities rather than like the be all and end all is me coming back to lifeguarding, and if that doesn't happen, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, that kind of thing. It's kind of the wrong attitude. So I'm trying to be open to like whatever happens will happen for a reason, and I'll be okay with it. I'll have to manage it, and but still definitely trying to cling to a hope of coming back to lifeguarding soon.
Is there anything in particular that either you look at lifeguarding or your health professional network, do they go, well, this is something that you need to be working on so that
you don't face challenges, whether it is, the paddling out, whether it is pulling someone onto the board. Like, are there specific things that worry you about getting back to it?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. We work with a lot of variables in our workspace, in our environment. The ocean's very unpredictable. Patient rescues are very unpredictable. I mean, no two rescues are ever the same, and no two patients are ever the same body type, weights. Some people are very heavy, some people are light. It just, and so there's so much, variable element there. So it's hard to predict for the people that I'm working with on my rehab at the moment. It's very hard to predict what is going to be safe for me back at work in regards to my injury and what isn't. So, I mean, you've only got to cop a wave to the back of the head or a rescue board to the back of the head. And I see some pretty rescues go wrong. Like, it's dangerous. Like, when the surf's big, those rescue boards weigh 20 kilos. I've seen them fly up in the air and hit people in the head, and, all sorts of things can go wrong out there. So, and you're holding onto a patient, so if, you can't let them drown. And so it's a lot. And the unpredictability of the environment, I think, is the hardest thing for my rehab team at the moment to try and work with. And so, that's really sort of a big thing with my work. It's the elements. It's working out in an unpredictable environment, and the whole thing about the ocean. That whole thing, never turn your back on the ocean, and all those sorts of quotes and things, but they're true. So that's proving a little bit difficult. Whereas if it was a controlled environment, we'd probably have a little bit more success, and it would be a shorter path to where we want to go.
Yeah. Looking back on this time, it might sound like a funny question because, it's been a tough ride. But is there something that you've enjoyed about this process?
Well, that's a brilliant question. I think there's not a lot. I'm going to be honest with you. There's not a lot I've enjoyed about it. I think that probably the most part of it was slowing down, and because when we're in our lives and we're working and we're busy and we're in the hamster wheel and we're just like rushing through life, but the injuries forced me to sort of slow down, take time out of all of that and reassess what's important to me, and really sort of take stock of what's going on in the broader scheme of things, if that makes sense, and work on my own mind game. So, doing the things like starting, sort of meditating and doing some mindfulness practices and things like that. Those are things that I've enjoyed picking up along the way, and moving with those sorts of tools to be better.
Would you say that the meditation would be a game changer for you, or?
Definitely. I think that it's incredible. I mean, it's often talked about meditation and the benefits that it has for everyone. I think a lot of people struggle with meditation in the beginning because it seems too hard, and it seems like, but I know with my experience of it, you get a meditation teacher who's that's what they do. They teach people, they meditate, they give you a mantra, and you're in sort of guided hands along the path. And there's this sort of common sort of, I guess, frustration with people that try and meditate, that, oh, I can't do it, I'm having thoughts, and it's like, once you learn to do it properly, you understand the human brain is going to have thoughts regardless. Exactly. And even good meditators have thoughts in their meditation. So it's like, it's taking the control element out of it and forcing something to be, and just sitting there quietly and allowing the process to sort of happen. And so part of the beauty of meditation is like relaxing your grip on everything and just sitting there and going with what comes. And so it's been new to me. I really have enjoyed like my meditation, and I think that you can notice really good things start to happen to you once you start to meditate, i.e. like, things like you see greater spaces between your thoughts, you more calm, you sleep better, like you breathe better. It's quite profound, the benefits that meditation has, and I think it's a great tool for anyone.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that one, because I mean, people, it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm meditating, but I don't feel like I'm getting anything. Like, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
And it wasn't actually until, you know, you go through an experience, something happens, and you're like, oh, I'm not going off right now.
Yeah,
Normally
right.
I would.
Yeah.
It's those sorts of things that meditation happens afterwards, or the benefits happen afterwards. It's not during.
That's right. And you know, like things like being reactive, like you were just saying, like, you know, someone who used to be reactive and, you know, flare up at things. And I mean, change doesn't happen overnight, but you can start to see, once you've been meditating for a period of time, that sort of reactivity and that, you know, starts to sort of, you know, peter away, and you start to become a more patient, tolerant sort of person of things. But I think that's a really good point you said about there's no shortcut or fast way to meditating and getting results quickly. It doesn't happen like that. And I think that's part of what meditation is in itself. It's like being able to sit with the process, being patient, allowing it to happen organically. And when it happens, you're probably not even aware that it's starting to work really well for you. So
Exactly.
it's like I said, it's profound, the results that it has on people. And I think that people just need to like stop trying to do it well.
Yeah, exactly. That's like, right.
Yeah. It's just trust the process. Go.
Exactly. Yeah. My meditation teacher, brilliant analogy. It's like, because I'm very much in my head all the time.
I think we all are. Yeah.
And so, you know, she said, you know, when thoughts come into your head, like let them, but then just come back to your breathing, right? And that's the point of meditation. She goes, that's a meditation sit-up. That's part of the exercise, right? That happens and you come back and you get back into your breathing. And if it happens again, you come back to your senses.
And there's another sit-up.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a really cool way of just
that's great. I like that.
It. Yeah,
I like that. And you know, it's very true that it's like it's going to happen like that sort of cycle of things for you throughout your meditation, you know, a lot. And the idea is that the beauty is then just coming back to your anchor, which is your breath, and then moving through the process that way. So it's great.
Brilliant. Trent, this has been really awesome. I really appreciate your time. If there are people out there who want to wish you well or follow your journey, how can they do that?
Probably just, you know, on my Instagram. I think everyone's kind of the same these days. I'm just Trent Falson on Instagram, and that way they can do it. That way, check in with me that way, or I'm pretty good at keeping updates about what's going on in my journey with rehab and you know, surgeries, and even just doing my fitness sort of work. So people can sort of jump on there and have a look if they choose to do so.
Awesome. Well, I've got two questions for you to finish off. And the first one is, what is your message to those who are struggling to find their identity, or if they've been through something like yourself where they're injured and are no longer able to do something they associate their identity with?
Yeah, I think you can really use that as a brilliant springboard and opportunity into trying new things. And the key word I want to emphasize is here is trying new things. So don't be afraid to fail. Like, you know, as long as you're failing forward, like if you are trying new things and it doesn't work, cross it off the list and move forward onto the next. That's one more option that you know that you don't have to chase up or down that road. So I think when it comes to like people losing that sort of form of their identity, I think it's a great time to try new things that you wouldn't have tried before, and reinvent yourself via that sort of part. So, but I think the emphasis is that don't be afraid to try and don't be afraid to fail, because failure is part of success. So, you know, it's all about like getting out there and just like getting involved in things and working out what works, what doesn't, what you like, what you don't. But I think too many of us, and I'm guilty of it as well, don't want to try new things because we're worried that it won't work or we'll fail or all of those sort of reasons. So I think when you're sort of dealing with loss of identity and those types of things, this is a really good opportunity for anyone in that situation to go out and reinvent themselves, try new things. And like I said, you never know where that path will lead you to. You could be a totally different person doing totally different things in another 12 months' time. So I think you've got to sort of just get out there and try.
That's brilliant. I love that, failing forward.
Yeah. It's awesome. We always think of failure as going backwards, and in society we're terrified of failure. It's been drummed into us that like, if you're failing or you fail at something, it's a negative connotation to it. And but I'm sort of the reading that I'm doing at the moment and podcast and the like, there's this very much new view of failing forward, and it's part of a success journey. So there aren't too many people who have succeeded and not failed in their journey of some sort. So and the lessons that failure brings with it, you apply those to moving forward. So I'm very much a believer that failing is actually sort of part of success.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it. Last question.
Yeah.
What is your message to those who are going through mental health challenges?
Yeah, this is a big one at the moment. I think there's probably not too many people in the world who aren't touched by the sort of COVID lockdowns, and the world is going through a lot of shift at the moment, and there's a lot of people doing it tough and struggling out there at the moment. Probably first piece of advice I would say is please reach out for help to people, because people want to help. Whether that means for you engaging a psychologist or a counsellor to help you unpack or work through what you're going through, or finding a really good friend that's supportive in that sense, that can help you unpack what's going on for you, or family. But I think it's very important to share your problems and get it out there, get it off your chest, get it out of your head, and get it to other people so that they can give you input and help you out with it. People can't help if they don't know what's going on with you. So I think, there's this stigma attached with those sorts of things, in depression or whatever, might be that people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to open up, or they don't want to. I think very much the first phase of that sort of getting right is that, sort of getting the help that you need if you need it, and sort of getting it out there. And I think secondly, I would probably say take care of your, control the controllables again. Take care of your try and get rest, sleep, diet, some exercise. Those things have proven to be very powerful in people's mental health makeup. So if you can get on top of those things, they're foundations for mental health, or good mental health for people. And the other one would be try meditation and mindfulness and those sorts of avenues. They're brilliant. It doesn't cost much money. You can get on the apps these days on your phone and learn to meditate through the, I think sort of the Headspace and those type apps, and just, again, try, you know what I mean? Try it out, and get in touch with, some meditation and some mindfulness, because it's just a really big game changer if you can stay the path with it, or stay the course with it. So those would be my 3 tips for people that might be having a tough time out there at the moment. And be connected with your friends too, connectivity, just stay connected to your friends. Social network, those sorts of things are huge. So
Trent, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It's been brilliant.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great chat, and I really appreciate it. So